Bail or jail for getting fairness continues. Here again is Richard French.
Welcome back. By all accounts, from those who've actually spent time behind bars at Rikers, boredom, it may be an inmate's worst enemy. But New York's Chief Justice, he'll tell you the innocent inmate's worst enemy, it may be the system itself.
Boy, I think it's so important, so central to the criminal justice system, to the court system that I lead, that I think it's our responsibility to speak out when we think there's injustice. What could be more important to the Chief Judge of the state of New York?
Following Justice Lippman's speech earlier this year, a bill was introduced in the New York General Assembly that would have addressed many of the judge's concerns. We received the following statement from State Senator Mike Nizzolio, whose Senate Codes Committee would have to move on any legislation if it moved forward. Here's what he had to say. This important legislation, introduced at Judge Lippman's request, is currently under review by the Senate Codes Committee. The committee will continue to seek the input of key stakeholders as we work to evaluate and review these proposed changes. But what the senator called important legislation never made it out of his committee. That means the reform bill died when the legislative session ended in June, and to be considered would have to be introduced again when the New York Assembly reconvenes next year. The ACLU lead attorney, Taylor Pendergrass, says bail reform, it's essential legislation that is long overdue.
And I think sometimes it's easier for a lawmaker to go for the low-hanging fruit than to go for something that is really going to be effective. But the evidence is now overwhelming that we have more effective, more humane solutions at our fingertips.
Now, you just heard how New York's bail system keeps the scales of justice tipped towards people certainly of means more than the other way around. Now, how people who can't afford bail often remain in jail. Now, explain why. We are joined by Justine Olderman. She is managing attorney for the criminal defense practice of the Bronx Defenders. Thank you very much for a few minutes.
Thank you for having me.
You know, even after everybody saw this, I'm sure there's a lot of people sitting at home saying, please, you know, everybody can find a few $100. At the end of the day, to keep yourself out of jail, family, friends, whatever, they should be able to scrape this together. But you were telling me about a story that I think most people, almost everyone I would hope, would say doesn't sound right, but you can put a human face on this. Talk about a recent client of yours.
Sure. This is just a couple weeks ago. You know, my office is in the criminal justice system each and every day. And so what I can tell you is that what you highlight in your program, this is the norm. This is not an outlier. This is not an aberration. And this woman's story is a perfect example of it. Just 2 weeks ago, I met a woman. She was 35 years old. She had no criminal record, and she had gotten into an argument with another woman on the street. And the woman had then accused her of trying to take her purse. Now, keep in mind, nobody was hurt. Nothing was actually taken. She was arrested based on that accusation and went before a judge who set $500 bail on her. This is a 35-year-old woman with no criminal record. $500 bail. I meet her 45 days into her incarceration, and she is still in because neither she nor her family nor her friends can come up with the $500 necessary to secure her freedom.
The thing that I'm still confused is, other than negotiating leverage to get a plea, what's the upside for enforcement to be keeping these people behind bars? You still got to give them 3 hots, you got to give them a bed, there's overcrowding in a lot of places. Why, what's the incentives, use this example, to keep a person without a violent record here, put them into the system? Wouldn't it cost more than just say, you know, we'll give you a date to appear in court?
The problem, I think, is twofold. One, you mentioned, right, which is the leverage, and that's huge. I mean, the vast number of people who are coming into the criminal justice system are coming in for really, as your show points out, minor, low-level offenses. And the criminal justice system, if every single one of those people could get their day in court, could get a trial, would simply break down. And so, yes, a huge part of it is everybody knowing, the judges and the prosecutors knowing, that when people are incarcerated, they will do anything to get out of jail, including pleading guilty to something that they didn't do, because really, at the end of the day, the criminal justice system, we can say ideally, it's about the presumption of innocence. It's about the right to trial. It's about the opportunity to confront your accuser. But for people who are held in on bail, they will give up all of those rights in a second, in a heartbeat, to be reunited with their loved ones, to go back to work, to go back to their homes, and to go on to live their lives. So the leverage piece cannot be understated. It's huge. But the other piece of it is really from a judicial perspective. Why are judges setting that amount of bail? And the truth is that any judge who sits there up on the bench is going to be afraid that they are going to release somebody, and then that person is going to go out and commit some attention-grabbing headline, and that they themselves are going to be on the front page of the Post or the Daily News. And what's so wrong about that is the idea that anybody could possibly predict. I mean, those cases are so rare to begin with. First of all, most people do not reoffend when they're released, either on bail or on their own recognizance. And those who do are cycling back in through these minor offenses, not the things that society is really concerned about. But judges are going to take the safe approach. For them, it's easier just to be over-inclusive, to incarcerate more people, and to be assured that they are not going to be that statistic. They are not going to be the person that has their name splashed across the headlines.
Is this an open secret? We saw Justice Lippman taking the unusual step of being so open on this. Everybody know about this from the first year, ADA to somebody who's been doing this for 20 years? This is common knowledge? Unfortunately,
yes, it is common knowledge. I mean, all you have to do is spend 5, 10, 15 minutes in an arraignment courtroom where people are seeing judges and judges are setting bail to realize just how ubiquitous and widespread the problem is. And what's sort of interesting about it is, at the Bronx Defenders, we created a citywide bail initiative really a couple years ago to look at this problem. And what we found is that people in the criminal justice system have almost taken it for granted, just assumed that this is the norm, that this is the way it is, and that this is the way it should be. And really, if you take a look at the law, what's amazing is that even the state legislature, when they drafted the bail statute, they were concerned about poor people being unnecessarily incarcerated.
Make the argument, if you can, Justine, to the person at home who says, you know what, better safe than sorry, just like you said. Why should somebody at home care enough about the process to change it?
Because ultimately what we're doing is we're not then incarcerating people because they are in fact guilty of anything, right? Because they haven't had their day in court. The criminal justice system ends up not being about the severity of the charge or about the strength of the evidence. The criminal justice system simply ends up being about money, about those who have and those who have not. There was an allusion to it in the special about this idea that when you're on the other side of the bail determination, when you're out, the criminal justice system can be about all those things that your viewers think that it should be about. But if we get into the habit of simply saying, well, let's err on the side of caution, let's just massively incarcerate people who are brought into the criminal justice system under some idea that that somehow is going to keep us safe. First of all, there's no foundation for that. There's no evidence to support it. No risk assessment, instrument or test could possibly enable judges to make sure that they're picking the right people. And what it does is it creates a perversion of everything that the criminal justice system is supposed to stand for. And that is really something everyone should be concerned about.
So wave a magic wand here. What do you do about it?
Well, to be perfectly honest, there's a lot of call for reform, but this doesn't require a magic wand. There's nothing magic about it. It doesn't require some expensive overhaul of our bail system. From the bail initiative that we've done, what we found is that when you actually look at the bail statute and realize that the laws in New York actually have just a multitude of tools that enable judges to release more people, either on no bail or non-financial bail.
But would you rather, if you could, actually take away discretion from judges and say somebody like the client you mentioned, no record here, no violent act here, there's a maximum bail of X, or can be as low as 0 instead of giving a discretion for as much as $500?
Well, the truth is already in the law is a provision that says unless there's some reason to believe this person's not going to come back to court, the presumption should be on release. And then even if you are concerned, there are 9 different forms of bail that judges can choose from.
You say let them still keep the discretion.
Absolutely. Let them keep the discretion, but they have to follow the law. They have to understand what the goal is of the bail statute and the tools that are available to them. And unfortunately, the citywide bail initiative we did illustrated that a lot of judges simply did not know what the purpose of the bail statute was and didn't understand the tools they had for releasing more people from jail. I gotta go to a break, but finally, is the problem getting better or worse? Well, we have seen that with education, it is getting better. It is getting better, but a lot more needs to be done to educate people, to raise awareness in the same way that this program did for the general public, and unfortunately, even for those in the criminal justice system, to be able to recognize just how incredibly inherent this problem is, and we need everyone's participation in fixing it. Great job. Thank you very much, Justine. Thank you. All right, everyone, we jump to a break, and when we come back here, we're going to be talking politics here, but I also want to remind everybody, you know, your comments on these type of issues always are important, so please sound off. Just go to our website and make your opinions heard. Now, coming up next, we're going to turn to the race for City Hall. On the eve of New York City's mayoral primary, it has all come down to a battle of the bills. Our interviews with both Bill Thompson and Bill de Blasio from just a few hours ago coming up straight ahead. Stay with us.